Ja, of country food. Hier, AB. Hulle skaai in viskas. Dis in pakke. Super.
Apa spaar je dan? Is die koeldrank niet op te doen? Als een friskas daar zo. Ja, die ook skep sien jy.
Dis in pakke, ja. Dis duur, ja, R80, R100 vir 'n pak. By jou lekker nou. Wat of biolies. 2 servings kan vir jou, depending hoe jy dit gaan gebruik.
En kring by die goeds maar dat net so.
Ek 'n paar goed Google ja. Google 'n paar goedjies vir wat jou vet kan laat brand terwyl jy niks doen nie. Dit se goed te kry. En gaan dood werk. As dit gaan dood werk en die resultaat sien en opgee.
Nee, jy moet iets doen by jy kan nie net bro. Net so jy gaan die klip aan doen.
Ja.
En ek kan nie die vette brand nie. Maar as ek nou moet gaan ek in oos en spier is groot en hard. Daai maak styf bly. Styf en dit word nie pappes. Jy lekker afwerk met hom. Maar jy moet hy so net pak op was met die mense.
Ja, maar loop.
Ek kan hom so maar hy so pak op. Ek by jou sien en hy so pak staan. Dit is sweet. Ja, so T-shirt wat jy aan het wat
Waar
is dit sing wat ek aansit om
jy kon ek kan sweet.
Ja.
Maar jy maak dit soos dit brok western is. As jy nou jump, ons groot maak so. Maar klap.
So
big show.
Ah ja.
Jy sien jy sê nog op sien.
Sê
hey, my lord, ek kry vir jou vrou baie jammer.
Hy laaste moet 2 keer is dit 2 fiets.
Stadig maar.
Ek sê kom nie jy pas in by lord nie jy pas.
Ja, ja, dis 8 af en 2 aan die kante.
He explained it to me and I was like, yeah, but this is so true. Think about how many times a story...
Dis vanaf om te sê jy wil six-pack kry, maar dit werk nie wat dit doen.
And once that shows...
Like for let's say like
the office. Yeah. Right? You go like, no, people don't have... You can't look at the camera and you can't... And then Ricky Gervais did it, or popular. Then they tried to go to they bring it to America, and I don't know how to... And then everyone's like, everyone's family, everyone's looking at the camera, everyone's making a mockumentary, and that's a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you look at the next story, you go like, oh, let's make this, I don't know if this would be cool, is there a market for...
Is it gonna resonate?
I'm hearing the same thing here in a way, but you go, let's make these stories for Africans, or like by Africans rather, and for them first, and I can see people going, oh, but Lupino, just don't find Africans are big fans of podcasts.
Yeah.
I've even heard people say that way.
Right.
And I go like, yeah, because no, they were on the podcast, but like, who are they relating to?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why is an African person going to just listen to some random podcast in Ohio?
Right.
And then become like, they did find a podcast, huh? I was listening to one about the malls that are stretching through America. Man, look at, like, why? And I like that you, where do you think you got that from? This sort of obstinate idea of like, I'm going to think about everything you've done and how brazen and revolutionary it is. You know what I mean? You are a dark-skinned black woman from Kenya coming to America to act in Hollywood movies, and not as extra number 7, but as lead character.
Number 1 on the cool sheet.
Yeah, like when I was watching Quiet Place, and I was just like, I mean, I don't know if you still feel it, and I hope maybe you don't if you're in it, but I was watching this and I was like, people, can we just pause for a moment?
Yeah.
This is and I think people take for granted, and no one in the cinema is going like, that's interesting. When does the white star coming? No, people just, it's her from, like, where did you get that from? Like this idea that I'm going to push for the process. They say no, you go, no, I'm going to do it. They go, hey, your accent is thick. You go, no, I'm going to do it. You know, they go, you're from Africa. You go, I'm going to do it. Where do you get that from?
What color comes to mind when you see this? Red, right? The color of love. I'm gold, divine. I'm purple, like royalty. It takes more than one color to define us. Electro color. Express yourself with 14 fun shades of summer. Electro.
Join XM's biggest promo ever. We're celebrating 15 years of award-winning trading, and you can double your deposit bonus up to $15,000. The more you trade, the more you earn. XM. Join now.
I believe it's my parents. My parents didn't raise me to be limited by my gender, my ethnicity, my nationality. They just didn't. And I think that is where, because I'm so grateful that I had parents that supported me from day one. My parents are not your conventional African parents, right? They never ever told me who I needed to be, except my mom made me take French. But other than that, like, it was all about what are you interested in, and do that to the best of your ability. And because I was born in Mexico and I have this Mexican name, I always had the feeling that I belonged somewhere else other than Kenya. So I grew up always curious about this place that I was born. And I had books in Spanish that I didn't understand, and I would just pour through them with a longing to one day understand. And I think those things, like feeding me with these elements of global curiosity, really, really, I think, gave me that foundation of I belong in the world, you know. And at the time, I wouldn't have said that. I don't think that I moved through the world with like a, you know, chest out. The world's my oyster. Certainly not. But a curiosity and a disbelief that I'm unwelcome.
Oh, I love that.
You know, like
that I am unwelcome.
Yeah, like my default is not to feel unwelcome. My default is to seek welcome. Wow. You know? And so I don't look for rejection. I experience it. But I think I have more hope and faith than doubt as a default. So, like, I remember when I auditioned for drama school. I came all the way from Kenya, right? My dad bought me that ticket to come to America to audition. I had 3 auditions. And it was NYU, it was Yale, and it was UCSD. And these auditions were all taking place on the East Coast. And I would go there, and people were nervous, and people were like checking each other out. And I was just like, I've come too far. I've just come too far to be worried about you, and you. Like, I just can't. I'm going to go in there. I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. I'm going to give it my best. And then they're either going to say, yes, you come. Oh, no, you go home. But like, I don't have time. I just didn't have time for self-doubt in that moment.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that may have translated in the room, you know. And then I got to school, and people were like fretting about, oh, why do you have to do this and that? And I was like, I don't have time to fret. I need to pick whatever I can from this program and make the most of it. Because again, I have just come from too far.
Yeah.
I just cannot. I cannot be. I was so grateful also to have the opportunity to just focus on my art. I did not come from a society that was supportive of my interests.
No.
My parents were, and they always were safeguarding my interests. But my extended family, they were like, when are you going to get serious? You need to do something of mana, you know? Like substance, you know? When? You know, this acting.
You act like a doctor.
Yeah, this acting, Amondi, you have to get serious, you know? And I got that a lot. So I was often the child, I was often the friend that my friend's parents wouldn't let me come to their house. Bad influence because I had my hair with blue.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
I was weird. Yeah, I was weird. I was always like unconventional, right? And so being that oddity, like by the time I got to this, I was just like, no, I gotta get on with it. I can't allow for someone else's doubt to stop me. I can't allow for my own doubt to stop me. You know, I had to externalize externalize the rejection
Yeah.
and not allow for myself to inflict myself with the rejection.
You know, I'm
really curious. Do you think something about being raised in Kenya kind of disconnects you from a lot of the messages that young black girls, particularly dark black girls, experience in the West about colorism, complexion, hair?
Yes, but you know, I did experience colorism as well growing up. I experienced that, and I experienced a lot of. I had issues with self, so I wasn't spared that. But the difference is that I came from a majority population. So my issue was not being black. It may have been being dark, but my issue was not being black, and so I was not othered in that same way. And as much as I was being teased by how dark I was, everybody was dark. There was always like counters to it, right? And so I didn't have a society that was treating me in the same way, you know, and I didn't have a political system that I was fighting against in that same way. And I had other markers of identity. I was a woman, I was a Nuo, I was upper middle class. There were other things that I was anchoring and contending with than just this question of like my external self being the only marker of my value. And I have a lot of empathy for the experience one must have of being raised in America, where that value system is so much, it's just such it's a lot more drastic because of the racial paradigm and the history. And I definitely feel grateful that my identity was internally.
Don't go anywhere, because we got more What Now after this. Wow.
But the idea that like black cards would be snatched from me.
No, that's not a
that
thing.
didn't exist because I didn't have.
That's not a
I didn't
thing.
have that language. I didn't have that racial language. It was just she's weird. She's just weird.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I was not. It's not a larger. I don't know. It's just not a larger indication, right? So I was allowed to even though it was met with side eye, I was allowed to self-express a whole lot more and figure out my individuality without that sort of like cultural or just that tension.
Because you have like this beautiful confidence, right? That you're very poised and you carry it through the world. And it seems like America hasn't affected it at all. And that's a very difficult thing to do. I would say when I came here, I was like, or just being raised in the West, being Black British, you're confronted with these ideas all the time, and your value being less than, that you're always having to overcome, fight against. But you seem to have retained a great sense of self. And how have you done that? I'm curious.
Well, I think it helps that I came here as an adult, right? So when I first came, I was 20. I had to, it was a crash course, learning America, and as an African, you can ignore the racial dynamics, but you're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
So I went to a liberal arts school where people were asking these questions, and the idea of racial, what is it called, just racial awareness, theory, understanding that history was something that I was thrust into and picked up on, you know, and I have a group of friends that were always inquisitive and talking about these things in very, very deep ways. I mean, we never had light conversations. They were all so deep and exhausting, actually. But, you know, I was able to develop a racial understanding, but in a way that wasn't formative, right? It was my brain first before my heart, right? My brain first. And then, of course, doing 12 years as a slave was very, very helpful for me because I had to go back in history and take time personally, you know, that period of time very personally. And it really helped me understand modern day America with a lot of empathy, you know, that I can now, I felt in a very personal way. But I think I don't know whether I have a formula or an understanding of it. It's something that I don't question, you know? And I think like if I try and understand it, I might jinx it. I might lose it. I might lose it. But I remember like my mom, there was a time when my visa ran out after my undergraduate degree. I had done 12 years of slave, but I was on OPT when I did 12 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were on a student visa.
I was on a student visa, right? Right. I was a student. So and that was only for a year, right? And it was running out. 12 years wasn't out yet, and I was facing this thing of like, do I try and stay or do I go home? You know? And I got this project. They offered me this role. I was going to play like a Nigerian maid, and it was just it was infuriating. It was one of those stereotypical roles that I felt was just taking me backwards. If I did it, I got to stay in the country and pursue my dream further. And I couldn't take it. And my mom said to me, you have a roof over your head and people who love you in Kenya. You do not need to struggle in America for them to accept you. You are accepted here. And being reminded of that I belong somewhere, that I belong to a people, I think that really bolstered me. And I chose not to do that project. And in the end, of course, everything turns out. It worked out. This is the good news. But I think I really want to give my parents credit because they instilled in me self-worth that I go back to again and again. And sometimes it slips, but I have my family to remind me of who I am, right? And I know that my value doesn't come in what I've achieved. It comes from who I am and who I'm continually trying to be.
I can't help but think about how important it is for countries and societies to adopt many of the ideas that you're speaking about now, because I remember speaking to a friend of mine from Compton, and a comedian, and we were chatting about life as an African American, as an African. We were comparing our experiences and our lives, and there were so many similarities. And I said to one day he looked at me and he's like, man, I ain't gonna lie. He's like, it feels like we live the same life. He said, but man, he's like, I still wish I had home. And I said, what do you mean by that, really? And when he described it, he said something that I realized America as a whole could stand to benefit from. What you said in Kenya, no one could take away the black card. No one could take away your Kenyan card. Do you know what I'm saying? No one takes away like your Nigerian card. No one takes away your South African card. We will fight with each other in South Africa about everything. You're this, you're trash, you're this, you're up, you're down, whatever it might be. But no one will say, you're not South African. Listening to you, I can't help but think about like how America has unfortunately created this system where people's belonging can be like taken away and then given back and on different levels. You look at African Americans, it was, you're not American. Okay, you are American. And then now you complain that you're not American.
Or you're not American.
And then you're not American, no, you're not. And then it's like, okay, you're not, no, you know, how black are you, and it gets taken, it gets given, and then now it's almost extended to everyone. How dare you complain about this country? You're not American. Well, maybe you need to go to another, and it's powerful to hear you saying how much peace and confidence it gives you knowing that you're here regardless of like your actions, your successes, your contributions. Your mom saying to you, hey, you have a roof, you have people who love you. Imagine the power that would have, like when a country would say that, hey, yeah, you don't agree with this, you're still American.
Yeah, you're enough. You're enough. That is such a powerful thing. Yeah, to really, truly believe that you're enough. But for a country to support that narrative. I think something that America does really well is create narratives about itself.
Definitely.
Right? And that's why it's like you either fit the narrative or you don't. Who's determining which narrative is the American narrative, you know? There's that thing. And it is unfortunate. And it's only now that I'm realizing, talking to you, the way that my consciousness is different because my Kenyanness has never been in question.
Yeah.
Even when they're fighting between Kenya and Mexico about where I belong. Like, for me, there's no question, right? And also, I'm not limited to that paradigm.
Yes.
You know? Like, I'm not trying to be Kenyan. I just am.
Yes.
Right? I don't have to prove that I'm Kenyan.
Exactly.
Even if people would want me to, I don't have to prove it. And like, I also realized my father has been fighting for the country. I mean, we gave up, we basically, growing up, he was like more there for the country oftentimes than with us, right? And so the fact that blood, sweat, tears, my uncle disappeared and was never found again, my family has fought for that country in such a way that like, it belongs to me. And I remember when I was here and I was working with my green card and working towards citizenship, I was debating whether I was going to apply for citizenship, and I asked my dad, like, Daddy, what does it mean if I apply to be a citizen of America? Like, how does that make you feel? And he was like, that the country is yours as much as this one. The world is yours. This idea of borders is something we made up,
Yeah.
you know? So we get to belong, you know? And it's unfortunate that there's political systems that want to convince you that you don't belong. But you're of the earth, you know? And it's yours to claim.
I love that idea. And whenever I meet people who don't fully understand it, I've come to realize that they do it in their own lives without knowing, you know? So people are like, well, you gotta choose. I don't like it when people say they're you know, something American. I don't like it when people say they're something. Then I go like, you do that as well. Like, where do you live? And without even flinching, I mean, well, I mean, I'm between, you know, I'm between New York and Connecticut. I'm between Florida and New York. I'm like, people do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a honesty and duality that exists. You know, you can be like both a mother and a woman, and the two, while they overlap, aren't necessarily the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can be young and this, you can be, you know what I mean? It's like,
Ambiguity.
it really is, and it's the nuance and ambiguity that I think is really beautiful. But I would love to know, like, where you see these stories or these ideas going. You know, your whole journey has been such a wonderful evolution. You know, as you say, it's like 12 years a slave. You would be forgiven if you took the path that was presented to you after 12 years a slave, which is like, okay, you do this very well, and so we would like you to do it forever. And I must also say, this question is not about Hollywood per se. It's just that you happen to work in a film industry, but I think a lot of people deal with this. You did something well, and so the world said to you, hey, do more of it. And then you went and did something completely different. And they said, oh, wow, oh, yeah, okay, do more of that. And you said, no, I'm going to do something completely different. And they go, okay, do more of that, and do more of that. But here you are, I mean, with a podcast that is telling stories about Africans that everyone can enjoy, by the way. Like, people, I hope people listen to understand. They're really funny and interesting. And the best way I can explain it to you is, don't go like, oh, but well, I get it, it's an African, so I go like, no, think of it this way. All food basically has the same ingredients. We just cook with different spices and different flavors. And so it's like, try a story with a different flavor. That's really all it is.
I like that.
You know?
I like that.
And so I'd love to know where you would like to see this evolution continue towards. Like, what does Lupita dream of doing beyond just telling the stories on the podcast? And I know you're always thinking bigger. Where do you hope to go now?
Well, my secret in touch with the podcast is that, first of all, I wanted to popularize African perspective. Because one of the challenges is that when you go in with an idea or an African story, they're still scratching the head, like, who's the audience for this, you know, and all that. So that was, my intention was to popularize African perspective in the hopes that maybe some of these will be a movie one day, you know?
Right.
And like, it gives more of an opportunity for people to be like, oh yeah, it seems familiar, you know?
Yes.
And it's a light lift. You just spend 40 minutes with me once a week. That's not much to ask. You're in traffic anyway. Why not? You know, mind your own. And so in that sense, hopefully it works on the subconscious of people who are not African, who are not familiar with Africa, to just recognize it as familiar in a way that then we can grow and contribute to it becoming more of a global perspective. Yeah. So there's that.
I love that idea. I really do. And I think if there's one person who is genuinely just talented and stubborn enough to achieve, it is you. No, because you push. You like your line. It'll really stick with me. Like not expecting the rejection, not accepting the rejection.
Yeah.
Experiencing it.
Yeah.
But really saying, no, you know what? This is where I'm going. This is what I'm trying to do, and the world is a better place for it. Thank you for spending your time with us.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing the beautiful stories. I know Wild Robots is out as well. That's going to be amazing for people to watch. Lupita Nyong'o, as always, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Want vitamins, fiber, and energy? Kellogg's Cocoa Pops Power Breakfast.
Sore throat ruining your day? Trust Strepsils to turn a sore throat around fast. Take Strepsils Soothing Honey and Lemon at the first signs to kill germs and soothe. And try Strepsils Intensive for up to 6 hours of relief from a painful and inflamed throat. Strepsils, own every moment.
Are you living out here now, or? No, I'm living nowhere. I'm a nomad.
And you know what's funny is I sold my house. I don't have an actual residence.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I sold it because they broke into it, and I didn't spend enough time in it. So you know what? I don't need it.
Is there anything they didn't take that you hoped they would take?
Oh, for the sake of
No, like for me, I remember when I used to have Crocs, like back in the day. But then my house got robbed. They stole everything, all my clothes, all my shoes, everything. And then my friends, we were like, oh, the house got robbed, We're going to everyone's room because I lived with my friends. And then my friend was like, oh, they left your Crocs. Well, at least we know they had taste. And I was, ouch. Yeah, insult to injury.
ouch.
This is What Now with Trevor Noah. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you. Gabriel Iglesias. Every time I'm going to have a conversation with somebody I know personally and intimately, I have to think about how I would introduce that person to my audience.
I think you just did.
Yeah, but I think there's two things that I honed in on that I'd love to talk about in this conversation, particularly. Obviously, the comedy and the life and the stories we share, and you know how much of an amazing person you are. But there's two big things that I haven't heard many people speak to you about. One is mentorship, and the other one is business acumen, and I mean raw business acumen. But maybe I'll give a bit of backstory, and you're gonna have to fill in some of the backstory, by the way, for how we met.
First of all, I have a high school education, so what the hell is acumen? Acumen, hey, acumen. Acumen, hey, wait, it almost sounds like Spanish. I have an idea of what it means.
¿Cómo se dice acumen?
Acumen.
You have a knack. Come on, man. How did we meet? 'Cause I actually don't know the full story of this. How did we meet?
Well, I was in Bakersfield doing a show. I remember vividly. I was in Bakersfield doing a show.
Yeah.
And at the end of the night, I was in my hotel room. I was flipping through the channels. And I came across
Hoi,
Tonight Show.
ken je hem?
And I started
Ja, maar ik volg hem op TikTok.
Hij is het.
He came out there and I was like, who is this person? They are freaking amazing. You are so talented. Your charisma, your energy, the way that you presented yourself. I'm like, this dude is hysterical.
Thank you.
I'm like, clearly, he's way too comfortable, way too confident, way too smiley. I'm like, no, this dude is not, he's already way too smiley. Yeah. It caught my attention right away how the level that you were already at. And so I went online to see where you were going to be performing, and I saw that you were going to be at the Improv in Irvine. And I'm like, oh my God, I was I live by there, and so I said, I'm gonna go check them out. And so then I went out there to go see your show, and I'm in line with all these South Africans and all these girls, these white girls with South Africa flags, and they're like, we're here for camaraderie. I'm like, this dude already has a following. Of course he's famous. I knew it. This guy wasn't just some nobody. He showed up there, and he already had a following. And so I saw your show, the full hour, not 5 minutes. So afterwards, that's when I walked up to you, and you had your little South African posse right there in the floor and stuff. And I just walked up, and you recognized me, and you're like, oh my God, hey! I'm like, hey! And I said,
So I'll tell the story from this. Okay, so from my perspective, this is how it happened. By the way, your whole story is the exact same story as many of my stalkers, by the way, which I love. It's amazing how the intention
we
change
saw you on television,
Yes.
and then we waited.
I told you, and I was like, he smiles so much. And then I researched you online, and I was like, this is where he will be. And I came there, and
Oh my God, I waited
for
for
you.
stalker.
I waited for you after the show, Trevor. And there you were. There you were.
But so from my perspective, first of all, I didn't know you were there. I was on stage. I do the show as normal. It's Irvine, California. It's one of the few places where I was able to get people to buy enough tickets to fill out a club, right? Nobody knew me in America. Nobody. And so I do the show, and at the end they go, hey, this comedian here, Gabriel Iglesias, wants to chat to you. I'm like, Gabriel Iglesias? I'm like, isn't that the singer? They're like, no, that's Julio Iglesias. I'm like, oh shit, okay, Gabriel. I'm like, who's Gabriel? Because I'm terrible with names. And as soon as I see you, I'm like, oh shit, the guy that, and you must remember for me, it's so weird because obviously I come from South Africa. We don't bump into people who you've seen on TV, who you've seen on, like, any competition shows or any big shows or any, I knew you, I was like, this is the guy. So I come over to you, and it's funny you started with my South African posse, because you were with, like, it seemed like a little, it was sort of like a little Mexican mafia vibe.
Nice.
Because you look like Godfather vibe. I don't know if you've ever noticed this about you. You have like but it's like a kind, you have like a kind vibe.
Nobody gets whacked.
No. Nobody gets whacked. But it's because there's an understanding, you know what I mean? It's an understanding. It's like, yo, you don't want to get fluffy angry. You've got like this, and everyone around you has like a really peaceful but protective demeanor, you know? And so you waited for me afterwards, and it's just a small little crew, and you're like, hey, how you doing, man? And I remember how kind you were, and I was just like, oh, this is great, I can't believe, I think every comic has this. Every comedian is deeply grateful and feels seen when another comedian watches their full set. I remember shocked, like, why are you here? And you're like, I came to the show. You didn't like ask me for tickets, I didn't know you. And then you said, the sweetest thing a human being has ever said to me, you said, hey man, I know that you're a big deal where you're from, but I wanted to offer you an opportunity. I want you to come on the road with me. And you said, please don't be offended. I'm not saying you should be my opening act. I'm not saying any of that. I know you're big in South Africa, but I really think it would be good for you to come out on the road with me, because I could expose you to audiences who you would have otherwise never gotten to, and who I think will love you. I think a lot of people in my audience would love you. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, who is this person? You know what I mean? Who is this Hispanic Santa Claus? I said yes to you. I didn't know what I was getting into. I came on the road with you, and I was like, I've never seen that many, but when I say fans, I don't mean people who have come to the show. I don't mean people who are watching. I mean fans. And that's maybe, my first question about your business acumen. What do you think you did right to build an environment where you don't just have people who like your comedy. You have people who buy your face, on those little dolls, the bobblehead things, and you have people who buy plushies of you, and you have people who buy your t-shirts. But I want to know if you intended that from the beginning, and then also how did you even begin that journey with people? Because there was some point when nobody knew your comedy, and now when you're filling up like a Dodger Stadium, what happened in between? Where did this begin?
I think it was, to say that I had a plan to design this almost sounds like maniacal and evil. It was my plan all along. No, it was one of those things where I was just grateful that people would come to the shows. Yeah, and I would always thank them, and I would always say, hey, if you like the show, tell somebody about it, you know, and word of mouth is the best thing. You guys, if you enjoy what I'm doing, please share, please talk about it, and after the shows, I would just go outside, and if anybody wants to come by and say hi, you know, I made it so that people knew that I was somebody they could come up to. I wasn't putting this divide in between where it's like, no, my show's over, now you go home, I take a check, and I go buy a car. By not making people ever feel like I was above them or better than them, it's just, I'm this lucky kid from the same area that they're driving from. I'm like, hey, I'll see you guys on the 405. You know, I'm that guy where I'm like, hey, if you see me in line at Jack in the Box and you like my show, let me cut. And they're like, okay, go ahead. You know, so I'm somebody you can run into by the bathroom, and I get people always asking, can I hug you? Or can I feed you? And I'm like, yeah, this is not the norm. You know, so to say it was a plan, it was not a plan. It was just me welcoming the audience and trying to be cool with everybody. And it wasn't until years later where it just got so out of control where you had to start putting things in place so that you didn't find yourself, because I came really close to getting kidnapped a couple times. I know, save the jokes. But yeah, people were just trying to...
See, I didn't have a joke.
I know something that had the jokes, and people are like, really? Kidnapped? Yeah.
Come on.
But yeah, it wasn't a plan. It was just, you know, let me just treat my audience the way I feel like I would want to be treated. Like when I go to a concert, I look to see how the artist welcomes their audience. There's some like singers that will just start singing. And they won't even say, 1, 2, 3, go! Yeah. There's no, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, thank you for being here, we're going to have a fun time. It's great, I got so-and-so working on sax, I got so-and-so on drums, we were talking about being here tonight. Little things like that go so far, and people don't want to break that wall. They're afraid of engaging for some reason. And I think that's a mistake. I think a lot of artists would go so much further by bringing audiences in. All it takes is looking at someone, smiling, even if they're smiling too much. I do it too. Smiley, recognize smiley.
But you know what I think it is actually? I think it's what you just said. You know, it's a fear, and not necessarily a bad fear. I don't take for granted that there are two types of performers. I think there are performers who are trying to get into themselves, and there are performers who are trying to get out of themselves. Do you know what I mean? I've seen this with comedians as well. So there are some performers who get on stage, and in order for them to hit the marks that they need to hit on that stage, they can't be themselves. They can't be Gabriel, they can't be Trevor, and they don't want to be that person, so they've got to transform into this other being. Like, I'm sure you've met tons of comedians who can't go on stage sober.
Have to get in the zone.
Yeah.
I need to get in my space.
Yeah, you know, but I think it's a protection thing where they go, if you don't laugh at this joke that Gabriel has told, then Gabriel has failed. But if it's like El Matador who told the joke, and then the joke doesn't land, well, what would El Matador do? You know what I mean? It's like it's just this. It's the protection. Yeah, it is completely. And you have a vulnerability to you that really is unique, honestly. Like, where do you think you got that from? Like, what were your first experiences in life that allowed you to like open yourself up in that way?
I think the fact that I've always wanted acceptance and I've been used to not being accepted has just been one of those, like, you know, I was very much the kid that didn't have very many friends. I was always overweight. I had really bad teeth. I had acne. And for somebody who was not accepted, I was never picked in sports. I was always, you know, anytime people would get together for groups, I wouldn't even get picked for groups. So it's like, really? I can't, you know, this has nothing to do with being physical, and I can't even get picked for the science team or get picked for this or that. So it's like, I did not fit the entertainer's mold, but I was drawn to comedy. I loved watching Eddie Murphy. I loved watching Saturday Night Live. I loved hearing the laughter, because to me the laughter was acceptance.
Yeah. The one thing I've realized as I've become an adult is I was like awkward because I was always observing people. And I don't, like, you seem very affable now. You are very affable now. Were you like that as a kid?
I feel like I was very much the same as now, where, well, you see me on stage, it's like, I am not the loudest person in the room, nor am I trying to be the loudest person in the room. So as a kid, I think that I just didn't get the opportunity to connect with people.
Okay.
And I'm not someone who goes out of their way to try to insert themselves. I would rather just see that there's an organic opportunity to join a conversation or to get to talk to people, but I'm not trying to go out of my way. So if that was offered, maybe, because I was quiet.
Yeah.
I wasn't outspoken. But as far as socially, like when someone starts talking to me, it's like, all right, let's go. You know what I mean? And so I still have a couple of friends from my childhood that remember me from back then, and I value and I cherish them just because it's like, man, that's my only like grounding to before all this happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so anytime I have a question about, hey man, am I acting a certain way? Am I doing something different? Is my view on this messed up? Because they'll be real with me and they're not afraid to tell me exactly what they see. And I think it's important to have a connection to the past like that.
Okay, but then what do you want to lose of the past? You know, I think it's important for us.
Poverty, man. Sharing a bathroom, man. Fuck that.
But you know what I mean? There are some things we hold from the past that are, you know, something like I'm always careful. People will say, you're just the way you've always been, or you've changed. And I always go, what is the way I've always been that you're holding on to? Or what is the change that you wish I had maintained? Some things are good to hold on to, and some things are good to change. Are there things that you don't do that you used to do when you were younger that you're glad you let go of?
I don't think that I've changed too much. Things from the past that I definitely would want to let go is the small thinking, the small like, oh, it's the, you know, the thing is only this big versus thinking globally.
Right.
So I was very much only thinking this much back then, and I didn't have the ability to see outside of that when I was younger, whereas now it's like, it's endless. You know, you can make it as big as you want or keep it as small as you want. But the problem is, the bigger something gets, the more difficult it is to manage. And having control over yourself and your career and your surroundings, it is really hard when the circle gets really big.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for me, that circle did get too big at one point where I did start to lose control and I couldn't see and the wheels were turning and I didn't know who was making them turn.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, all right, you know, you say you want the big pie, well, when you get it, see what happens.
You really made it a big pie, man. There are a few people I know in the world who have the footprint that you have with your comedy, with the way you've made people feel, which is, I think, crucial. So I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world for comedy and otherwise, and I'm always impressed at how many places I go to where they know you. What's interesting is what they feel about you and how they feel it. I want to know when you decided, if it was an active choice, to take many of the things that ostracize you at a young age and turn them into the tool that made you bring people to you and bring people together. You know, like, so many people grew up being teased about their face, their weight, their vibe, their voice, their everything. Very few people have taken that coal, crushed it into a diamond, and shared it with everybody around the world. Was there like a conscious moment where you did that? And how did you ensure that the audience was laughing with you and not at you?
I want to say about 4 years into it, because my whole act in the beginning, when I first started doing stand-up, was I was just doing characters and impressions, and everything was a situation with cartoons or this character. So it's like, it was nothing to do with me. It was like, he's entertaining, he can do all these characters' voices and sound effects, and he's painting pictures, but you don't really know anything about the guy.
Yeah.
And I remember I did a Comedy Central show called Premium Blend, and I did a bit about being at a nightclub and how I only wanted to dance with big girls, because if I'm dancing with a big girl, then we would get tired at the same time. And I remember it was the first bit that I put out there like that, where it's like, wow, that was actually personal.
Yeah.
You know? And for some reason, like, it started with that one bit, and then it just started expanding from there. But, you know, of course there's self-deprecating, and then there's just like, hey man, look, this is just me, and either, you know, you're cool with it or you're not cool with it. I'm gonna be good either way.
Yeah.
You know, and so, I don't know, I think it was just that whole, I don't care. Call me whatever you want, you know? I've already gone through years of this as a kid. You can't phase me now. So it's like, whatever. And then the more shows I would do and the more laughter, and afterwards it's like, okay, well, if I'm this big joke, if people just want to make fun or laugh at me, why would you want to talk to me after the show? Why would you want to get in line for a photo? You know, I'm wearing freaking New Balance with a stain on it right now. I got a hoodie that I'm wearing. It's not fashionable, but it keeps me warm. It fits. You know, by maintaining certain things and not letting the business turn me into something else. That I think I did have to work on because you can get consumed really quick. I wish I could make everybody happy, but you can't. But I just think it's one of those people understand and they relate to people who have flaws. Someone who's not trying to pretend to be perfect.
Yeah. We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break. What did the business want to turn you into at the beginning?
Oh, dude, man, well, when the money starts coming in, all right, everybody who goes from having a certain amount to all of a sudden, boom, overnight, the money quadruples, and you're like, what the? So, of course, for me, out the gate, man, I bought 2 Hummers. I went from, and I was still living in an apartment. So, yeah, the money will mess with you. Yes, I had 2 Hummers.
Same color or different colors?
Different colors.
Okay, good.
Yeah, different colors. But I was
So
living in
you're
an
not that
apartment.
crazy.
Oh, man, so I just started doing stuff like that, putting TVs and PlayStations in the car. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But at the time, I'm like, how cool is this?
Yeah.
I was just so excited. I'd never seen money like that before. And so, yeah, I did a lot of stuff.
But you know what I love? But you know what I loved about your vibe? So there were 2 things that I found impressive. Is that like, one, just personally on the bus, what I loved about rolling with you on your tour bus was how diverse the people were, the schools of thought were. I mean, I would be having fights about Republican politics, Democratic politics. I remember your bus was the first time I realized that this was even like a thing. Was, you know what I mean? Because where I come from, there is no just like strict delineation. It isn't, you're Republican, you're Democrat. We don't have that. And I always say to people, this is my opinion, I always say to people, I think one of the worst things that's happened in America is that it's become Democrat, Republican, blue, red, because it makes it that people have chosen a side or a thing before they engage in the topic. Whereas in South Africa and in many other places, we just fight about each topic. And you find that people agree on different things, and people disagree on different things, but you find coalitions and moments that connect you. And I love that on your bus, for instance. We used to have arguments for days. You would just sit in the corner laughing, by the way, which I love.
Yeah.
You were the best audience member. And you would just like ask like a really, like it wasn't incendiary, but you'd ask a question, you'd be like, but Trevor, what about this? Or you'd be like, but Rick, what about that? And it would spark a whole conversation. But I do love that your environment encouraged that. And what I found particularly interesting was, you as Gabriel said, I don't engage in politics, etc. But you not once said to me, hey Trevor, don't talk about certain things on stage. Not even, and I mean, there's not even one time when you came to me and said, hey man, please don't say, hey, that thing you said about slavery, or hey, no. You gave me the full leeway, you gave me, and maybe that goes into like the mentorship of it all. Anybody who asks me, and thousands of people, anybody, they go like, oh, who made your career? And I go, guys, I couldn't have gotten, you see me on the Daily Show, so I'm like, none of that would have happened without Gabriel Iglesias.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm telling you, you know why? Because you genuinely, one of the greatest gifts you gave me was you put me in front of audiences that I never otherwise would have been put in front of.
Wow.
And there's still comedians today who I know who don't go to the markets you took me to. Places where people exist in America, but I learned, thanks to you, they feel like they don't exist. Do you know what I'm saying? Nobody comes and does a show. Nobody even considers them politically because they don't really shift the needle in either direction. They're just like these forgotten places in America, and you put me there. So let's talk a little bit about mentorship in that way. You were mentoring me. You were teaching me about merchandise. You were teaching me about comedy, about sets, about... in fact, here's a story. The only time... man, food. Yeah, we're going to talk about food. The only time you told me something instructive where you said, don't do that or do that, was I was doing a set. And you're on stage, you're going from one show to the next. And I have a bunch of material. But I've been doing the same set that you on the road. And so at some point I was like, man, let me switch it up. The same jokes, let me switch it up. And I had a great set. And I walk off stage, and Fluffy's standing there, almost like not angry, but just like a disappointed father or uncle, you know? And you were just like, hey,
like, yo, what happened to the joke? And I'm like, what joke? And he's like, you didn't do nah mean. And I had this joke, nah mean, and I did this like on Leno, and it was a great joke, and I loved it. But I was like, yeah, like, I don't need to do it. And he's like, no, these people haven't seen that joke. I was like, yeah, well, it's fine. You're like, no, you need to let these people see that joke. And I was like, no, I don't like the time. And you're like, hey, and you looked at me, it was like a coach in a basketball movie. And you looked at me, you were like Denzel or somebody else, and you looked at me and you were like, hey, you remember something. These people weren't with us yesterday, and they weren't with us the night before, and they won't be with us tomorrow. You might be getting sick of these jokes. They're not sick of them. You go out there and you do it like it's the first time ever. And said, those people deserve now me. You go out there and you give them now me. I was like, I can't go back out there. I'm gonna look like an idiot. I just got on stage. I'll do it tomorrow. And you're like, no. They're like, yo, man, you forgot to tell your joke. So you're gonna come back on stage. And I'm like, oh, come on. What is going on right now? I can come back. And you're like, you go out there and you show them what you made up. You give them their joke. And then I came back on stage like, this is the most awkward experience I've ever had in my life. No opening act has ever had an encore. I'm willing to bet money. No opening act. And I went out and I did the joke. And it got a standing ovation. And I came back and you just hugged me. And you were like, that's what I'm talking about. So like, talk me through this. Why do you have comedians on your show who don't perform your style of comedy, who may not even like compliment your style of comedy, and could at times like, surprise the audience? Why would you do that?
I thought you were funny. I thought you were very funny, and the show, you added more to the show.
It's a crow. A crow.
Whenever I put on shows, I look at the entire show as a whole. I don't just look at my performance. I look at what's the fan experience. Are people going to enjoy it from beginning, middle, end? Are they just sitting there waiting? So I did have a lot of comments on the show. I mean, at the time, I think with you, it was Rick Gutierrez, Alfred Rosen, Martine, Sean Latham. Yeah, and then of course,
and then there were people who rotate
in between. Yeah, so it was already. Most comics only have one guy. Yeah, maybe two. The only other person that I know that had more people on their show was Kevin Hart. And I know this because I went to a show and someone was like, wow! There's a lot of people on the show. But I enjoyed what you did. And, it's funny that you brought up the Namin bit because we love that joke so much that your nickname,
my nickname became Namin.
Namin. Yeah. So Martin, when he told me today, because I was going to bring him with me, he was saying, man, give Namin a big hug. So even years later, that stands as now Namin.
Yeah. So maybe the reason I'm asking this question is because I feel like we live in a country and in a world where people are less likely to engage in ideas and other human beings who aren't completely aligned with them. And here you have this person who has done really well building an audience that has an idea of them, but then every time you are risking the association with another human being, and you are risking the audience that you've built for that human being who doesn't have much, why are you doing this? Why take the risk?
I don't feel like it's as much a risk. Don't get me wrong, there was a couple times when I would get emails and they're like, hey, listen, we really like what you do, but we didn't like what one of your other colleagues said.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I can see that. But for some reason, I don't know, man, it's just, the only time I acted on it, and when I did, I felt terrible for it, and I still haven't fully, recovered from it, and that was with Martine. Martine's been on the road with me forever.
Yeah.
But I do remember that there was a year where we started getting a lot of complaints about certain topics. I tell Martine, just go out there and be you.
Yeah.
I've gotten a few emails and, talking to management, talking to all the people around me, they're like, hey man, look, this isn't a good thing for you. And, I had a whole break in the tour, and Martine went off to do his own thing for a while. And I missed him, and I felt like it was a breakup. But I'm like, this is still my friend. But the way that things went down, it didn't sit well with me. And I felt terrible for it. I'm like, I should have just had a conversation with him versus just letting all the powers that be dictate that. But it was one of those things where I like to support and make sure that everybody around me does whatever they do. And if they have a different idea or a different opinion, that just, I don't want everybody to think the same way as me.
Yeah.
That's boring. I want people to go up there and shake the room up a little bit. Have me say something that's so crazy I can make a call back on it, or say something that's like, whoa. You know, I like that. Because I remember one time, I had Rick Gutierrez on the road with me, and I told him, hey dude, what the hell? I said, just saw your set. Why did, you didn't do this, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. I'll call people out when they don't do the stuff they're supposed to do, clearly. And he goes, oh man, I was just, I didn't want you to have to follow the thing for this and this and this. I go, Rick, I'm a headliner too. If I can't follow you, I shouldn't be closing the show. You go out there tomorrow and you put your stake on that stage, all right? And let me worry about following you. You putting on a kick-ass show will make me work that much harder. I don't want to be lazy and complacent. You going out there and killing that stage elevates my game because now I have to perform better than I'm used to performing.
Right.
Because it makes you a better comic.
Right.
It makes you better.
It inspired me. I mean, it's the reason I do my tours the way I do now. You know, I was thinking about how some of my favorite memories, genuinely, whenever people ask me about America, and they go like, what are your favorite memories in America? I want to say 8 out of 10 of those memories involve you or where you took me. Like there are places, I remember, and I've told jokes about some of these things, but like the woman in Lexington, Kentucky, who came up to us after the show, and she was so sweet, and she's like, I just want to let you know you by far the funniest and handsomest nigga I've ever seen. And I remember but I've never experienced this firsthand. You know, you see America on TV, and here she was, and I know it's a strange thing to say, but it's like seeing somebody who is not trying to be racist, nor even thinks they're saying a thing that she was just like, what? And what the best, I did tell the joke, but it was all true. It was delivered to me. Was my favorite was when Alfred and the gang said to her, they said, yo, you can't say that, you can't say that. And she's like, what? I can't say he's the funniest? I didn't mean to offend y'all. And we were like, no, that's not the part of the sentence that was a problem. But I think of the memories I've had. And one of my favorite memories on the road with you. So there were a few. So this was in El Paso, Texas. Okay, this is the person who took me to El Paso. I'm new in America. I'm on the tour bus with Fluffy, and we get to this town. And El Paso at that time was like this really interesting place where you were in America, but it really felt like you were experiencing a city in Mexico. Do you know what I mean? It had an interesting feel.
It is a border town.
Yeah.
Neighboring to Mexico.
Right. On this day, I remember I was trying to look for searching for a Foot Locker. This was years ago. We were talking 2012. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, 2012. So I remember I'm using Google Maps. Google Maps wasn't as sharp as it is today. So I'm using Google Maps, and I go Foot Locker. I'm like, that's the way people buy their shoes in America. I'm like, all right, Foot Locker. And Google Maps shows me a place. Without even thinking, I leave the tour bus that we're sleeping on, and I just start walking. I just follow Google Maps, follow Google Maps, follow Google Maps. The more I'm walking, I'm like, wow, people are getting more and more brown. People are getting more and more brown as you're walking. I'm like, all right, people are getting more and more brown. And then Google tells me to like walk up onto some like embankment, and next thing but now there's this weird part where I'm essentially walking upstairs, and it looks like I'm going into a mall, I guess, but I'm walking upstairs, but very quickly the stairs are enclosed in there's like a cage. You know what I mean? So you couldn't like hop off the stairs on either side. Does this make sense? Okay. So I'm walking, and now there's a lot of people coming towards us, and a lot of people going where we're going. So now it's the inertia of the crowd, and you're walking. Then you're on a bridge, and I'm walking on the bridge, and I'm like, is that a river? What is happening right now? Where is this mall?
Oh my God!
And then as I walk down the bridge, I see a sign, and it says, "Welcome to Mexico." Now, in my ignorant brain, I didn't know, because I've never walked across a border in my life. To me, borders happen at like ports and at airports. And I'm just like, wait, what? Is it Bienvenidos a Mexico? I'm like, what? So now I'm walking, I'm like, oh shit, no, this is wrong. This is clearly wrong. So I turn around, now I'm causing so much commotion in the flow that the border agents are like there now. And then he's like, hey, come on. He's like, come on, vámonos. So I'm like, no, I'm the wrong, but I can't hop to the other side. I'm like, I'm trying to go to Foot Locker. And now they're pushing me, the crowd, everyone's pissed off at me, understandably. I'm like trying to get to the other, I can't get to it. And finally I like get down to where he is, and he's like, hey, and he's like, ándale. And I'm like, no, sorry, I don't speak Spanish. Hey man, I'm trying to get to Foot Locker. He's like, what? He's like, no, keep going. So I'm like, no, keep going where? I can't go. I'm like, I can't go to Mexico. I gave you the cases, I can't go to Mexico. And then he's like, what? Come on. Then he's like, where's your passport? And I was like, I don't have a passport. And he's like, what? Then I'm like, no, not like that.
I just don't have my passport with me. I didn't think. He's like, why don't you have your passport? And I'm like, I don't travel with my passport when I go to Foot Locker. This is not a thing that I do. Yo, we stood there for 15 minutes. I sat there begging this man not to deport me to not my country. Because it's one thing to get deported to your country. It's another thing to get deported to not your country. And then, I'd never done this before and I had never done it since. I pulled out my phone and said, wait. Let me Google me. And now I'm typing my name into Google and I'm praying to God. I'm like, Google, you better not mess with me on this one. I'm like, Trevor Noah. And I like hit it. And then my face comes up and the Tonight Show. And then like us, and like on, like all kind. And I was like, you see? And he looks at me and he's like, huh. He's like, oh shit, you was Fluffy. Oh my God. He's like, oh yeah, oh man, you guys doing a show? I'm like, yeah, you know Fluffy? He's like, yeah man, of course I know Fluffy. And he's like, yeah man, I love Fluffy. He's like, I see, yeah, like you don't know.
Oh my God.
He's like, oh Fluffy. And this guy, I will never forget, I walked and he jumped me over to the other side. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't walk across the border without a passport. I was like, so I was going to Foot Locker. I did not know that I was going to a border. And he let me come back to you. And I remember I was telling Alfred and the guy that and Alfred classic, he's like, yo, Namin, he's like, I told you, man. He's like, you're Dominican, bro. I told you, man. They can see it. And you might not see it, but they can see it, man. You're Dominican, bro. And I was like, yo, that was the day I was like, screw you, Google, and thank God for Fluffy.
Nee, Google, maar uit de goeie.
Wat doen we om deze kant te doen?
Zie.
Hij ziet die schoenen plek.
Easily, the best experience you and I shared for me was your fans. You would talk about something.
Dancing shadow, what is that?
And if you made
Magpie, most likely. What is that?
Yes.
I don't understand.
No. And one of the things you talked about was loving cake. And so at all your shows, Gabe, it was like, I close my eyes right now and I can picture backstage with every cake you can imagine would be waiting backstage. Every cake. And I remember I joined the tour. I felt like the African who had just come into this world. Whereas I was like, there's just cakes all the time. Because I'm not even lying, when I grew up, cake was a thing that would happen on occasion. I think it still is. Cake is not, you don't just bump into cakes all the time in South Africa.
Yeah.
Every day we were on tour. It was a minimum of 12 to 14 cakes.
Sure.
We had a cake table backstage at the shows because people would constantly bring chocolate cakes or you gotta try my cousin's cake or you gotta try this cake.
Do you remember the penis cake?
I've done a lot of penis cakes.
That penis cake was one of the best cakes I've ever eaten in my life. I remember nobody wanted to eat it.
It was a cake in the shape of a penis.
Yeah.
Like,
it wasn't a cake made out of penises. Come on, get your head out the gutter. That's a dick cake. Here you go. Come on. It doesn't hold. The eggs don't blend with it well. No, someone brought a cake that was a massive penis. Giant penis, right? And I remember nobody wanted to touch the cake. And I had become the de facto cake taster. 9 out of 10 cakes weren't worth tasting or eating. And then that dick cake came. And it was weird. You know how there's that thing that
no matter what angle, which
oh
side
no. You were getting the balls on one side, you were getting the shaft on the other, you're getting the head on the other. And I remember everyone standing there. And you know the show, Is It Cake? Yeah, this was the opposite. It was almost like, is it dick? It's like they didn't believe it was a cake. I was like, that's a cake. They're like, I don't know, man. I'm like, it's a cake. We can eat it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. They're like, I don't know, man. I don't want to eat dick. I was like, guys, you're not eating dick, you're eating cake. You can't eat dick with a spoon. And they were like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can. And so I was like, well, I'm going in. And they're like, you're going to eat the dick, not me? I'm like, I'm going to eat the cake. I'm going to eat the cake. They're like, yo, not me eating the dick. Not me eating the dick. And I was like, man, enjoy, you guys. And I ate it. And I turned to them and I was like, yo, you guys got to get some of this dick. And everyone was like, nah, you lie. You just want to. And I was like, everybody. And I will never forget there was a moment when we were all gathered around this giant penis on a table. And we were just all like, man, this is amazing. This is some good ass dick. This is the best dick we've ever had. Easily some of my favorite memories. But what else? What everybody wants to know is, where did you start? You started at the shaft of the. I don't even know where I just went in. I still try and find that. I don't know where the bakery is. I'll try and find it. But this triggered a random memory of mine that I've always wondered about, sort of what you said about receiving emails. I always wanted to know like how you dealt with this and how you moved through this. There was a time when
you know, you went to the doctors and they were like, hey man, Gabriel, you can't be eating as much as you're eating, you know, like we're worried about your health, you know, your heart, everything. You told the audience these stories, you're like, I've got to cut down and everything, and you started boxing, you started losing weight. And I'll never forget this because this really like threw me off as a human being and as a performer. There were some fans of yours who were angry that you were losing weight.
Yeah.
They were like, I'm not, more than any
You're not
political
gonna be
thing.
fluffy anymore. Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm gonna live longer, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, but I did have some people that were getting upset because it was going against the fluffy thing, you know. And it's like, come on, man. It's like, why is this even a concern?
That's celebrating to me.
The fact that I'm trying to make my life better, but yeah, some people did not receive it that way.
I think it's a valuable conversation to have in society. We take for granted how much the way we are makes people comfortable, and if we get to change that, it changes how they feel in relation to us. Do you know what I mean? I always felt like that illuminates something quite powerful that we're still dealing with today in society, and it's like, what do you think you've learned? Because you have real conversations with the people, which is why I asked you. It's like, what did you learn about how people see you, and then how you have to balance that with how you wish to be while still maintaining relationships with them?
I value people's opinions, especially people that are willing to come out and support and make this work. I listen to people. I value their opinions. It's not a matter of opinion. I'm no longer young. I'm no longer a 20-year-old kid that can be 440 pounds. I'm almost 50. And if I want to continue that, we already know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So in that situation where I have people that voice their opinion, well, you're not going to be fluffy no more. I can't support you. Those are the people whose opinion is not something that's going to work well with what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
And again, if fans are willing to see the bigger picture and understand that I'm trying to do something to make myself better physically, not let me do something that's like, oh, all of a sudden it's political. No, I'm doing something where I'm trying to improve my quality of life because I want to be around. If they don't agree with that, then I don't want that. I don't need that. And I have to be willing to accept the fact that, all right, I'm going to lose those fans. I'm sorry. Is that hard for you? It is, because you always want to make everybody happy, but I'm literally trying to make people happy by killing myself. So if me killing myself is going to make someone happy, then maybe I don't want to make those people happy. And maybe I need to let those people go. And that is hard. But I know for the greater good, I got to just be willing to say sorry. You know, I'm not going to be fluffy. Maybe I'll just be toughy. Maybe I'll be buffy. Maybe I'll be, scruffy. I'll be something with a Y at the end of it, but I need to be around.
Man, that's why I say you continuously, like you always inspire me, man, because I think this is something that
En ik betaal YouTube hoor. Ik waarschijnlijk kom ik hier mee eten.
Nou, moet niet echt zien.
Je moet iets zien. Dat is iemand hier voor jou.
Als je zit er, moet je YouTube dat je betaalt,
Ik betaal hem. Ik betaal 90 bucks een maand. En die maand ga ik op, die premium op naar 100 rand toe.
En dan gaat je uit.
En dan ga je nog steeds iets.
many performers, and again, I go to I'm sure people deal with it in their life, like when you're a performer, it's amplified. Many people deal with this and aren't able to articulate it and don't deal with it publicly. But there's an idea. For instance, on comedy, I'll deal with it the opposite way to you. If I do a show where I don't say anything political, sometimes people are like, what the hell are you doing? With everything that's happening in the world, you're just gonna come out and make jokes? And I go, yeah, because that's what I do. Like, sometimes I'm just making jokes. Do you see what happened on the news today? I'm like, no, I don't watch the news every day anymore. And they're like, oh, well, why not? And I go, because for my mental health, it's not great. I don't think for your mental health it's great. I don't think you should be watching news every day. It's not good for you. I don't know. I just feel like you. Yeah, this is not. It's not exactly. It's not what we signed up for, and I'm constantly and continuously thinking about how you find a balance in life between accommodating how people have seen you and how you wish to see yourself. You know how you wish to grow. What do you make of the conversations about weight and weight loss today? Like with Ozempic and everything. Like now, when people talk about losing weight and Ozempic and all these things, do you ever think about it? Do you have an opinion on it in that world?
As somebody who's used Ozempic, and by the way, Ozempic approached me years ago before it really became popular.
Oh, wow.
And they wanted me to be the spokesperson for Ozempic. They wanted me to be the you know, they wanted me to be the guy in all the commercials, the modern day Wilford Brimley, you know, me and my diabetes. I'm dealing with my diabetes. So they approached me to be the spokesperson, but you know, the powers that be said, hey, for what they want from you, your time commitment and what they're expecting, they're not willing to play.
Right.
And I was like, okay. But in hindsight, I would have gotten free Ozempic, and that stuff goes for like thousands on black market. Probably could have came up, but I passed. But I used it. I used Ozempic for a while, and they're right. Even with me, out the gate, first 2 weeks, I dropped 15 pounds. I didn't change anything, and so I can see why that would be addictive. Because if you do, it'll kick in right away. Now I'm taking something called Manjaro.
Oh yeah. That's from Eli Lilly.
Yeah, it's the other one. But you will plateau, because it's not like you just keep losing weight. No. You plateau, but it does regulate my sugars. So, for example, I wear a monitor. You can't see it right now, but there's
one of those on the arm. What colors? Do you have like a, what is it? Like a next? Is the one that does continuous glucose monitoring?
Yeah, continuous.
Okay, yeah.
Monitoring.
Oh yeah.
I like every 2 weeks I change it out. Of course, you scan it like when you're at the supermarket and then kind of read. All right, that's what I'm worth today. And that's been super helpful, along with just trying to be somewhat active.
Yeah.
I'm not as active as I would like to be. I don't do the boxing thing anymore, but I'm still moving.
Yeah, man. You have had some of the more honest conversations about food and the emotional connection it gives us, and the support, and the like I know for a fact, the reason I love food the way I do is because it reminds me of moments in my life when things were okay. You know what I mean? Man, there was never a moment in my life where we were broke and we had good food. And so food has this interesting connection to my brain that makes me feel safe, it makes me feel seen, it makes me feel welcome, it makes me feel, And I wondered, like, if over the years, because we haven't spoken about it in such a long time, but if over the years you've tapped into that connection with food, because I know you and I would literally talk about it while eating, like Arby's or whatever, we'd just be like, remember how food makes it? No, I just wondered if you've had, like if you've worked on that more, with therapy or whatever, just like, have you delved more into that space, what food means to you as a person?
Food for me has always been like comfort food. If I'm dealing with something, when you eat, you have that moment where you're just like everything makes sense. Like, for example, my favorite thing to eat in the world is just a plain cheese quesadilla. Plain cheese quesadilla. People go, really? That's what you like? You could eat anywhere you want, but you want a plain cheese quesadilla? I go, you know what? Plain cheese quesadilla makes me think of my childhood. My mom would make me a quesadilla, and that was just it. That's all I needed. I just needed a piece of cheese and some tortilla, fold it up. My mom would, make it on the stove, and I was a happy camper. And so anytime I have a quesadilla, it's very much comforting to me. It feels safe. It takes me back to a time when I had my mom. And you were very close.
20.
Hey man,
That's your favorite
you and I
food.
were brothers on that trip, like figuratively and literally in the food. And I don't know, to see how
hamburger.
work and how much value you gave to overweight people all over America, where you didn't allow them to be
steak, man.
being slaughtered, like you gave people. I remember when you said to me about merchandise, I was making t-shirts, you knew how to make them, I didn't even know merch was a thing, and then you said, like, give you sizes and split them out, and I was like, alright, I'm going to need medium large, and you're like, no, I mean, where's the double XL, where's the triple XL?
The code.
You're joking, right? You're like, no, I'm not joking. Don't think about everybody. And I was like, where I'm from, it isn't.
It's Thai.
I wasn't even joking, and it was a learning, but some people have their side, and it's this weird, complicated thing where I think in society, we like to impose a singular idea. So you want to go, well, if you're fat, then no t-shirt for you. But you taught me that humanity in such a beautiful way. You feel seen. You taught me to always try and see people as much as you can. See them, meet them where they are, And then hopefully by holding their hand, embark on a journey that takes you in the right direction.
Maar voor
And so I
mij,
guess that takes me to the question,
een
you
lamsteak.
know, that I ask everybody at the end
Kijk
of
hier.
every episode. And that
Hij moet
is,
zo 5 vet proeven. Nee,
you know, Diego Iglesias has in many ways done.
een lamsteak gewoon.
There are few, maybe none, no comedians who are gonna set up stadiums. Like Dodger Stadium is not a joke. Like, you know what I mean? I've seen fighting on Saturday, like as soon as I'm reading, it's like 15,000. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, cleanse your white teeth, boys. Here we go. And you've done it. No, it's true. You've done it. Touring the world. And so I'd love to know, like, you know, for Gabriel Iglesias.
Ik heb hem ook zo.
What now? What do you see yourself doing in the next few years?
Ik denk het Jewish is zo.
Korea, by the way. I don't know, like as a human being, what now?
Honestly, I think that it's time that I
Nee man, die vind ik moet weten moest
I
broer.
managed to be
Ja, ik heb het zelf koken, zelf maken.
Ja.
I've done everything
Maar het is
I've
een
wanted
goed
to do,
koken.
and I
Reed.
think personally I have failed
Like this is
myself by
the
not
experiment,
working better on relationships,
What is this
working
in
better
football?
on maintaining a certain level of just
Je always moet
health.
uitkomen.
I've allowed myself to, you know, I've made excuses for years, and I think that now it's okay to get off the road for a little while. It's okay to take a little break and start working on myself. You know, during COVID, I was so depressed because I couldn't get on stage for almost a year. But during that time, I actually started working out and seeing a diabetes specialist and started getting healthier because I was actually able to get on a schedule and a routine. And I lost about 75 pounds in that year. And then as soon as I went back on tour, I gained back 50 of it. And I'm like, wow, if I would have just kept this up for like another year, I could have, you know, but I got back into my old habits and I got used to being comfortable. And I think that by saying it out loud and by saying this in front of people, and I'm trying to make myself accountable because I hate letting people down. And I think that people know that this is the goal, they'll be supportive of it. And again, if some people don't want to support me making myself better, then those people I don't need in my life anymore.
Yeah, man, I think they'll be with you. I think through COVID, everyone has appreciated life in a very different way. And I think they'll be with you. You know, they'll be with you as fluffy, they'll be with you as buffy, as toughy, as scruffy. Yeah, and I hope you know on a personal level, no matter what you do or don't do, you will always be enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. That was a great day. Thanks for coming. Who you think cries more? Kids or adults?
Adults.
Let's have a vote. Okay, can you say? Adults. Sean?
Kids.
Kids?
Mensen
Ooh, do you remember the contrarian? Okay, throw your name in the tail.
It would have to be both, because like, parents cry when somebody dies,
Yeah.
and then kids cry when they lose something.
Ah, okay.
That's,
Okay, I see.
I'll say kids.
Babies. Damn, babies. We started off going off the adults.
My
and
mom
then
said I
like
couldn't say
babies.
that.
Your mom said you couldn't say what?
D-A-N-E.
Oh, D-A-N. Oh, oh, damn. D-A-N-N. Oh, D-A-N-N. Okay, I won't say either then. Yeah. Yeah. So when I'm saying it, I'm talking about,
Dat probeer ik maar, dat is jouw spoormaat.
That's a damn.
Zo lekker zijn, dat ik wel.
This is What Now with Trevor Noah. And so, for today's episode, I wanted to have a conversation with you about children But not like children through the lens of an expert, or not children through the lens of an adult. No, this is one of this is a topic that I love because I don't think anybody's truly an expert in it, even though some people say they are, right? And it's like kids, parents, and how we perceive their realities. And the reason I say nobody's really an expert is because people often talk about parenting. I mean, you know this thing, everyone wants to parent Christiana. Like everyone's like, this is a good parent, this is how you should parent, this is what you should parent. But I always think to myself, we don't have to think about like kid up. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Being a kid is really weird because in your world, you have a life, you have priorities, you have like your own like schedule even. Mm-hmm. And then there's this other human being who just happens to be bigger than you, who basically tells you that your shit is nothing. Have you, like, my favorite thing, have you ever seen like a little small child doing something with like a box? Right, like just like a box, a cardboard box. And they're folding it, then they unfold it, then they squash it, then they unsquash it, and then they move it around, and they put things in it, then they take things out of it, then they drag it around the room, and then you come here like, yo, we gotta go, we gotta go somewhere. And the kid is like, I'm working. Have you ever seen the kid's face? Yeah. The kid always has a look like, yo, I'm in the middle. And it's funny how, I always think to myself, it's funny how as adults, we think the kid's doing nothing. Yeah. But I often think, what if we were in like the office, typing out emails, dear sirs and ma'ams, to whom it may concern, please revert ASAP. Imagine if while you were doing that, a giant came into your office and then like lifted you up from your chair. And was just like, time to go. And you'd be like, no! You're like, I've got to. And they're like, no, time to go. And that's how it must feel for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what I mean?
But it's time to go.
Yeah, you see, I see that. You're a mom.
It's time to go.
When do you think you became a mom? Like became a mom?
I was always someone's mother. I have 3 little sisters.
No, but there's like a different shift. I'm sure there is. Because I know you. Remember?
Yeah.
I knew you before you were a mom.
Okay.
You've always been caring, responsible, all of that stuff. And I want to know when you became a mom.
Oh, definitely when I took Ovi home from the hospital and I exclusively breastfed, as you all know, because I always talk about it. And then I was like, I'm this child's life source.
Oh.
I was like, his nutrition depends on me. And that was, like, no one has ever depended on me to be fed. Mm-hmm. It was just so stressful, but I just remember just waking up and I'm like, I need to feed. Because he likes to sleep. He's never been a big eater.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was thinking just more about nourishing his body than like his spirit. It was very primordial. I felt like a woman in a cave. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was like the shift. And now my headspace is so much of my kids all the time.
I've never considered those in a difference between men and women. Yeah, like in a weird way with a man. Obviously, your presence is still important, but I'm saying to you are actually the irreplaceable part of your child's.
Yeah, like if I had a bad cheeseburger, it doesn't affect.
That's what I mean.
You know what I mean? It's like if you start eating poorly, that affects your child.
Yeah, your supply,
it's like as a dad, as long as you could do crack. You can crack. And as long as you blow the crack smoke out the window, the child may not even know.
They could have a fully normal
Because
child.
how many people think that their dad is like normal? Do you know what I mean? Because you think everything is normal because your frame of reference for everything is so small and it's wider as you get older. But like my dad would get excited to do like a dad thing, like a milestone thing. Because I think sometimes as men, that's the only time that we're like, yes, I'm important right now.
Right.
But right now is when I'm dad and we need this moment. And so I went to my dad and my tooth was loose. And he pops up, he's like so excited, pops up and he goes and he leaves the room, runs out of the room, grabs some string, right? And then grabs some string and ties one side of the string to my tooth and ties one side of the string to my dog, but he's not talking to me. So he's not, he's like, be still, and then runs in the door and everything, and then he looks at me, and he nods as if we've had a conversation. This man nods at me like, and it's time, right? And so they nod, slams the door, but he didn't measure, so it's just too much strain. So we just watched the door slam. And I was like, and I'm string hanging out of my mouth. And I'm like, was something supposed to happen? He was like, ooh, okay, let me, And then he went to the bathroom, because then he knew he could surprise me now. Because now I know what the thing was. I didn't know what the thing was supposed to be, but I put it together when he was like, So then he's like, I walked to the bathroom, and then he helped me get my tooth out. But I was just like, in my mind, my dad has a plan, and he knows what he's doing, and then he does it, and then I just trust it. And then he slams the door, and I'm like, maybe he doesn't have plans. Like, maybe
That's one of the weirdest moments, I think, for a child, is when you, for the first time, think that your parent doesn't have their shit together.
It's the falling out of the boat.
You figured that out as a child.
Oh, definitely.
Oh my God, that's very early.
That's did you
No,
did as well?
No, but I think that means
You didn't?
No, I didn't. I saw my parents as people very late in my life. I think I really deified them. I was like, oh, they're so wonderful. They weren't perfect parents.
Yeah.
But they were always like mom and dad. And then as I came into adulthood, I was like, oh, they're people, and maybe therapy wouldn't be a
Wait, so how old do you think you were when you first were like, oh, these are people who make mistakes and things?
They just always had it together.
No, but I'm saying, how old do you think you were? Were you in your teens? Were you in your...
Oh, I was in my early 20s.
In your 20s?
Yeah, really.
Oh, man,
No,
let me tell you something.
no.
I remember not even the first time. This is one of the many times. I was driving with my mom. This wasn't her fault, by the way, but still. I was driving with my mom, and we're in the car. We're coming back from a church service late at night, and we're almost home, like 10 minutes from the house, but it's like been an hour drive. And I'll never forget, I can like close my eyes and imagine the road. You know, it's a long, dark road, and there's one traffic light, so we're crossing over, right? So normally you wait for oncoming traffic, but it's like midnight, there's nothing. We see a car in the distance. We're approaching the intersection, we see a car in the distance. I'm looking out the passenger window of the car, see the other car. It has indicator on its blinker, so it's going to turn into the slip road, so it won't come to us, essentially. It means it's going to go in the direction we're also going to go, right? But I see that it's coming straight. My mom clearly is like looking at the blinker. I see it's coming straight, she's looking at the blinker, I see it's coming straight. And I'm sitting there in the passenger seat, and I was like, I think that car's coming straight for us. And I sat there quietly, and I was like, don't think she sees it. And then I sat there, and then I literally just sat there, and I braced myself, and then the car came straight and returned, and then just wham! It took off the whole front of our car. And like in an accident, you don't really know what's happened. Like your car's spinning around, and you know, it's the whole thing. And then we came to a stop, and she checks on me, and we're fine. We were really lucky. And then when we were all like calm and everything, I said to my mom, I was like, oh, I saw that. And she's like, you saw what? I was like, I saw that car was gonna hit us. And she said, why? She's like, why didn't you say anything? I was like, because you know how to drive, I don't know how to drive. And she's like, but you know how to see. Yeah, I know how to see. She's like, you must say something. And I was like, okay. But that was like the final one, because this was now just in driving territory.
Yeah.
I had seen my mom forget things. I had seen my mom so I would say from like the age of maybe like 5 or 6, I was like, okay, this is a human being who's in charge. But they don't always they don't have the superpower thing. I even saw with teachers. I remember once.
Oh, I always thought teachers were idiots.
Oh, okay, you thought teachers were idiots.
Oh, yeah. Because I was like, I'm smart. That's probably why they didn't like me. But I was like, you know more stuff just because you're older. But I was like, I have more brain power. I figured that out. I think my parents were just very competent. So they did disappoint me, obviously.
Yeah.
But they were very competent. But then, you know, when you look at your child in retrospect, you have those moments, you're like, oh, maybe that wasn't the best decision.
Yeah.
I was talking to Esther Perel about this one day. And we were talking about like traumas and childhoods and, you know, the psychology. And it's really amazing how, no matter how you raise your kid, there will always be the lack. that was created. And as a kid, there'll always be, so there are some people who are in therapy because their parents gave them too much freedom. They could do whatever they wanted, and so they never felt protected, or they never felt like there was structure, or they never felt, but then there are some people in therapy because they're like, my parents, like, they gave me a rigid schedule, and I couldn't do what I wanted, and I had to be home at a certain time, it made me wonder, I was like, is there a single kid out there who's just like, yeah, this is going well? And if your kid thinks it's going well, are you still a good parent?
I don't know. I feel like it's so much like gambling. It's like you have the kid and you are taking a gamble that you can raise a good person, so not a killer, right? And then you're playing craps. So you just throw the dice down, and the dice are gonna bounce, and they're gonna bounce, and you could call some of the bouncing trauma, but the bounce is also how you get your result. And then when you look at the thing, that's when everybody's like, good parent, or like, crap.
But sometimes I'm like,
You know?
have you ever met some parents, because you know, like, I think the kid is the kid, like, this thing arrives in your life, and they are the way they are. Born this way, as Lady Gaga says.
This blows my
I don't mean it like,
I hear every parent say this.
Is it the hard way? I
Yeah,
don't know.
the hard way. No, you're right, the hard way.
Yeah.
They just, and you're like, oh, you just like this. Like, I can try and pull you away from it. This is good and the bad, like, they're straight to weaknesses. It's just stuff including you, and like, so you have that element of that. And there's some parents who like actually do an amazing job, but the kid just turns out badly. And then there's people who don't do that much, and the kid turns out
pretty amazing.
pretty well. So I think you can like love them, give them a good education, like make sure there's no hunger, but then after that you just...
Yeah, but I'm saying, okay, so this is fascinating, because you're a parent. We're speaking as former kids.
Which I think childhood is the most important experience. Like when I don't just take advice from parents.
Yes.
Because everyone has had the experience of being a child.
Yes.
And I think that is valuable. I hate parents that are like, oh, I only care about, you can't tell me anything, you're not a mom. So I'm like, so you don't think someone having once being a child is valuable?
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
This is a different episode. Every now and again, I like to get up to some mischief in the world. Cristiano always accuses me of doing something. And in this case, yes, I was doing something. I wrote a children's book. It's something I've always wanted to do, because I love children's books, and I loved them, and I still read them, by the way. I think they're like the best books. The other ones are too many words and too few pictures. I wrote a children's book, and I thought for this episode, let's talk about kids, but not just talk about them, let's talk to them. So I sat down with a group of kids who are experts at being children, by the way. I don't know if people know this. They're the real experts at being children. We're going to continue this conversation right after this short break.
Deze short break is al hoofd.
When are we starting the podcast? Right now.
Alright, coming in.
That's good. That's good.
First,
No, I can see it's moving. Nola's moving.
welcome to the podcast. Welcome Nola, welcome Eden, welcome Mateo, welcome Juniper, welcome Charlie, and welcome Kana. Let's start with you, Eden. How long have you been a child for?
7 years.
7 years. Wow. That's like a real professional. How long do you plan to be like a child? Do you have like a long-term goal? 100 years. I like that. I like that. So I started writing. My first thing was to talk to like adults and talk to experts and boys, because like the book is really about like how a child sees their relationship with their parents and vice versa, and the internal monologues they have. Because that's what I had as a kid, and I think every child does. But then I was like, no, I'm just going to talk to kids. Like I got a full panel of children to have conversations with, and can I tell you, these little things are pretty genius. They came in with some insights, they came in with some ideas, and Josh and Christiana, I know you like to watch us hanging out together, and I was shocked at how much information we don't give children. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Like you'll be shocked at how many kids are sort of just like left in the dark about everything. So I'll talk to kids, I go, hey, do you know what your parents do for a living? And they're like, What does a living mean? Actually, let's talk about jobs. Let's talk about jobs. So I would love to know. Wait. Let's go down the line. So Charlie, do you know what's happening here, Norman? No, you just got hot. You were like, all right. So wait, no. So pay attention. I want to know about jobs. So we're gonna go down the line. So let's go. Nona. Do you know what parents do at jobs? Do you know what adults do?
Yes.
What's this? What we're doing now?
Yeah.
So you think they like hang out on the couch
Yeah.
and then talk about life?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Even what do you think people do at a job?
I'm just saying scientist. Is my mom is a scientist?
Like what does she teach? She teaches it. So she stands at the front of the classroom. Oh, so you guys know teachers, so you know what she does.
Yeah.
Okay, Mateo, what do you think adults do at their jobs?
I know my dad. You know all the people that are on the computers at the airport?
Yeah.
That's what my dad does.
Oh, dope. He's one of those guys. Oh, I've seen those people at airports. You would see like the kids, like for instance, if I say like, what do your parents do for a living? The majority of them put their fingers up to their faces and then mind typing, but like depressive typing. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you think adults do at work? What is that?
Doing boring stuff and typing on. They're drinking coffee and typing like, yeah.
None of them were like smiling and being like, no, you know what I mean? It's just like everyone had like
Yeah.
you know, it's like, you would think like their parents were like in a chicken coop for humans, pecking away at keys.
Severance.
Yeah. That's what, and I was like, wow. Like, I don't know, like Josh, like when you were a kid, what did you think of your parents that you now, like, because we get to an age where it starts to sort of consolidate like this information.
Yeah.
What did you think of your parents? Like, I've met your mom, but like, what did you think of your mom?
I mean, it's tough because the things I thought about my mom when I was little, I still think about my mom in a really sincere way. Like I see how she isn't always the most patient in life, but she's very patient with people. She's very loving and generous. And so then I look at my mom as this, as when I was a kid, this infallible version of generosity and like understanding. And now as an adult, I look at her as this very fallible version of generosity and understanding. So it's like none of it, I feel like I saw my mom for who she was and all the qualities that she possesses, but I just didn't have the right interpretation of them because I didn't have enough like world experience to understand what was happening. So like I remember there was somebody, my mom gave someone like eyes one time or something like that, and all I could think in my head was like, why was this weird person in our car? Because you tell me not to talk strangers, and then you pick the weirdest stranger to give a ride somewhere, and it's still to this day my mom is very like, be careful when you go here, watch your stuff, all stuff like that. But then there'll be these moments that are just these like, I don't know, I guess moments of inspiration where that thing supersedes almost every lesson that I'm taught to a certain degree, you know? I don't think anyone will dispute that being a parent is a hard job, but it's weird that...
Hello, today we'll be making breakfast and preparing a lunchbox for school. Let's start with some sugar and salt and wash it down with a nice big lot of more sugar. Now for the lunchbox. Let's put in saturated fat, more salt and sugar. Too much of these can lead to diabetes and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. The mark frontal package warning labels now.
If something is a hard job, wouldn't it mean that like most people wouldn't be good at it? Oh, but then we see the defensiveness of parents or people around parents or what my parents or what you tell my child, what that means about me that you reprimand my child. And so then we end up in this place that I think we've been in for a while where your entire childhood is the extent of your parents' awareness and experiences. And no one else is allowed in. Because it's supposed to be a village, where the village isn't welcome. If all of a sudden in the village is don't tell my child about when your child's wrong too. I've watched it in stores where kids tearing something up and somebody that works at the store is like, hey, put that down. It's like, no, talk to me, don't talk to my child. It's like, well, you don't have the presence of mind to tell your child to stop tearing stuff, so why don't I just go to the store? Yeah. And so I think that is what's shaping all of I'm like almost recontextualizing a lot of what growing up was, because I was from a family and I had a mom that would let another adult tell me what I was doing wrong. You know what I mean? Because my mom would, let's say there's some random lady and it's like just some old woman at the mall and it's like, hey, don't run with your shoes untied, blah, blah, blah. She would look at that woman and say, thank you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to like, I got this, you know what I mean? And I think that I got this is like, it's a small thing, but I think it's messing a lot of people up.
I think going from being like community driven, because I remember I had a big community growing up, and I was actually thinking about it today before I was coming here, like, there used to be these grandmas in church that would look after me, this father, Sister Kathy, Mum EJ, like, these women looked after me when I was a kid, me and my sisters. So, I was surrounded by work, like, aunties and uncles who actually weren't genetically related to me, who could also like discipline me, but felt they had a stake in my life. And my son had left the gap for different reasons, like, my husband's family's in New York, a lot of my family's in London, we live in LA. But this isn't just specific to people.
This year, you know.
Apart from their family.
This year, you can't do.
Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where millennials raising come in your family.
Ek het nooit weet, ons op my spuitjie gevolg, ek kan nie ons nie te luid te so die kussen. So kussen.
Nanny's very privileged, or the daycare worker.
Ek sê
You become really defensive of your
Ek het al voor jou terug op die spuitjie gevolg. Sit op. Sit maar.
Whereas like I grew up in a culture where if a child was doing bad, it was
Baie beter. Dis baie beter.
Oh,
you're part of it.
Ja, vir my kussen en ander.
It was an ethnic community, but it was it was a celebration. That's why weddings are so big. If someone's getting married, everyone shows up because like our child is getting married. But that doesn't exist in the same way. And I think a lot of that defensiveness comes from like, but I'm the only one doing this thing.
yes, exactly.
And when my child misbehaves, I feel like I have failed. It doesn't feel like we have. And there's something called collective failure or collective success that kind of takes the pressure off, even if it's raising children.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure this out, but I need your help. Trying to understand why grown-ups don't seem to understand kids. Okay? I need your, like, what do you think it is? Okay, no, not yet.
Grown-ups are boring and kids are fun.
So kids are fun, and the grown-ups are boring. You think that's why they can't figure kids out?
Yeah, it's just sit around. If you want to get chocolate, just say no. And then boring.
That is boring. That's you're right.
Fun.
Chocolate is fun. Kana, like, what do you think
Ons ouderdom gaan loop laag. Ja.
about the life of a child or a younger person?
I feel like, especially parents or adults, I think there's two types of parents, people without kids, and then parents, I feel like sometimes they like need to live their dreams through their kids, so they don't like live in the moment, and they like go through like the future, so like everything right now in your life has to be like perfect, like you can't be out late, and you have to, there's so many rules to like protect you for the future so they don't live in the moment. And I feel like adults without kids who hang out with kids are like way more chill because I guess they're not like your responsibility, but I wish like adults in general could just like take a breath and just be like, let kids go because what happens happens. And like they figured it out and they turned out fine. Well, I mean, some adults just turned out bad. But like mostly adults like turned out fine, so I think I wish they could just understand to like take a step back and like let me be responsible for myself because I have like all the key factors to do it.
So when I was sitting down with the kids for this episode, every child felt like they were being held back by their parents and their parents' ability or inability to cater to their like play needs or their, you know, what was illuminating to me was watching young people process the world who were very logical men, by the way. They were like, oh man, parents, people are tired. Yeah. People are like tired and they're like thinking about the future and like they don't like chill and they don't hang out and they're not fun and unanimously kids were like, people don't understand. All the kids. All the kids felt taken care of. All the kids, like none of the kids there were like, I think my parents are like, you know, really terrible parents, they're not doing a good job of that. But they all were like, I don't understand me. But I wonder, like, when you were a kid, did you feel like the parents understood you? Did your parents get you, or what was the thing that they got of you?
That's a really interesting question. So the first thing I will say is that like my dad, very, very intelligent, very astute man, and he would always debate with me.
Oh.
Yeah, we're like intellectual partners. Like my mom was always like, stop, I can't take it anymore. Like, go at it. But I always remember like, and it would be also my uncle Moses and someone else, but I would speak to, obviously they're men, but I was a child, and they would go at it with me, like, and I was a real like contrarian and kind of polemic, and they would just go at it with me, and I think my dad saw I had something, and he valued what I had to say, even though he always came in on the other side. I think he don't think, if I say it's black, he said it's white. Okay. And then we like debate from there, and he's still like, you're wrong. And then, but it's like, and in hindsight, that was a really valuable thing. I think especially, it was actually a radical thing, my dad has 4 daughters. But like, in my culture, I think girl children are valued less, but like, he never saw me as less than because I was a girl. Probably raised me like a man, that's what I might have said. It was just like, that sparring meant when I went out into the world, I was like, I know my ideas have value. But like, I felt very misunderstood. But my mom told me a story recently. She said that, and my dad never told me this, but it's from my dad. I played piano, I used to do exams, and I think I was like 6 years old at a piano exam, and my dad was watching me through a window, and he went home and told my mom, he was like, the girl puts too much pressure on herself. And he said he saw it and it scared him. Because he was like, she's only 6. Why does the piano exam have so much stake? Mind you, I think it has stake because of how they were raising me. But like, she came home and he was like, I just saw something in her that it kind of scared me because like, you can't carry that intensity to life. Is it correct? No. He was just like, go be intense. Sometimes you get stories in your adulthood that you're like, oh, you did see me, you did understand me. But maybe, you know, in that time, you don't have the language, you know, like, it was just like, oh, that's who they are, and sometimes now I'm thinking, oh, it's not that they didn't understand me, it's that they didn't have the tools, and they were in a time, they were like, how do we digest this trait of my child that is probably a little abnormal, maybe we should get her some help, and that's actually just back to what you said, because I actually, as a mother, I know I'm not enough, and I'm at peace with that. Like, I do not contain all the things that these children need, but I may be able to push them in towards a person. I couldn't be a stay-at-home mother. I know I'd be doing them a disservice from where I stand.
You're compensating for the village, essentially.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't have enough. I can't. And so
that would be like the village elder.
Exactly. And so now I think if more parents were like, I'm actually not enough, how do I connect with it? Because, Trevor, you give me parenting first. You guys are kids, but it's always like, when the other kid, when you're like, oh, no, Obi needs to be driving.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, Trevor said we should be driving. He was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I spoke through your logic behind it, and then Lewis was like, oh, that's a good idea. You know what I mean? But it takes humility to be like, actually, my friend who has no kids has more insight into my kid in this area than I have because I'm so close to it. And I think if more parents were able to just say, I'm not enough, what do you think, Josh, what do you think, Trevor? It'd be good for our kids, but we... Let's see what you got.
Release dry to skin in just 60 seconds as a nice and relief moisturizing lotion.
Alles goed? Ja, alleen maar goed. Ja, half het ding.
It's also got to be very difficult. I know that I'm not a parent, so I'm not felt this, like, at least is what
You like them so?
it's like life altering experience of like having a kid.
Wat de koffie drinken we deze?
You've seen parts of yourself
Het is altijd een stuk van het pakje koffie in morgen drinken. Of het een frisco Lekker. Lekker frisco met de cremora. Lekker creamy. Lekker dat gewoon te drinken, hè. Het is een stuk van het koffie. Dat met cremora. Maar is het
basically got in school for fighting, but not fighting in a malicious way. They just want to fight under the hey, let's fight. Like, and so you struggle in this way that could have so easily been solved by the parents instead of being like, no, my son's not being a fighter. Like you might say, you got a lot of extra energy, and you clearly like wrestling with your friends. Why don't we get you in wrestling? And now all of a sudden there's like not only now a problem, it's like this person does better. So here's one thing I'll say to that I've realized, and I know a lot of people will hear this and go, you can say that because you don't have kids and because, but I do believe my imagination allows me to think of what isn't and therefore it could be. I don't think, and I know this is a very broad statement, I don't think there is anything that a child is doing that is wrong. It's just we have not created space for it in their lives. Do you know what I mean? Like anything, like to your point of like wrestling. Think of it, you know, your kid is like always like fighting with other kids at school. And to your point, not malicious fighting. We're not talking about teenagers with like issues now. Take that child, put them in a fighting thing, and all of a sudden you've given them structure. Now they are a quote-unquote fighter, and it's correct. They're doing the exact same thing, but now you have given them a, you know what I mean? Or like when I was young, I used to like dismantling things, which a parent I can understand. I was like, why did this kid unscrewed the TV? It is terrible. Yeah. Unless you put me in an electronics class, and now I'm like, you know, assembling circuit boards and I'm working. All of a sudden, your purpose is to assemble and dismantle, and now you're looking at parts and you're putting things together and you're experimenting and I know it's a broad statement because I'm be like, oh well, what if they do this? I think most things, genuinely, most things can be catered to if you get to the roots of what the child is trying to do, and that's what I mean by, you know, to borrow the phrase, like, you know, parents just don't understand. It's like, yeah, the kid is not. 9 times out of 10, kids are not trying to do a malicious thing to anyone in the family. They're not trying to dismantle your house. They're just like, they're curious and they're trying to do some shit. Don't go anywhere because we got more. What now? After this. Okay. You want to get on the floor? You can make the cup and on the floor. You can do it for you. No, I mean, this is what happens in society. Okay? You do something crazy, and then like, okay, but then we can't see you. No, I mean, but the people can't see you. So now you're like, come on. I guess if you sort of like, okay, we'll imagine you.
When they were asked about how do you, if you could change one thing about the world, what would you do? I don't know, you expect them to like more popcorn, or like you can have dessert for breakfast, and then they have very adult responses.
So I have like a really important question to ask all of you, and this is about the world. If you could change anything about the world, what would you change? So, Anna, what would you change?
World hunger.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because I feel like that's the biggest problem. Like, obviously there's like war and stuff, but like I feel like everyone needs a good meal, and then they'll be happy, because if everyone's hungry, then like nothing's gonna work.
You know, you say that, and it's probably true. You find a lot of wars are fought because people are hungry. And, like, I don't know about you, but if I don't eat, I could start a war. So, okay, Charlie, what would you change about the world?
I think I would
like choose make it so that everyone's full, but also like some people don't have a home, and we wouldn't necessarily just have a home, but just like a place to stay where they would be safe from.
Oh, I like it. Okay, okay. So, and we'll hunger and we'll give everyone a place to stay. Jennifer, what would you do?
I think that like you know how like Monopoly or Life or something, you know how like you start with enough money to survive?
Yes.
I think that everybody should be able to like at least they can choose how they spend their money, they can choose how it is, but there's so many people who like work super hard and they don't like they just don't it's like hard, it's too hard. So I think that everybody should at least start with enough money to live. And that way and they can choose how they want to earn their money, like but at least they should be able to have money, like I know I'm talking a lot about money, but I feel like that's how they're so it's like based off of right now.
It is, you're not wrong. So like in life, we should give everyone a little money so they can start playing the game and give them a chance.
Okay. Yes. There's no way to win it, but you can survive.
Oh, damn, that's deep.
Oh, big guy.
Wow. Not bad. River, that's deep. Wow, river, that's deep. I'm so glad you brought that up. Because I was proud, even though I didn't know these kids that way. I was proud of what they said. But I was sad.
That's true.
I was really, really sad. Because I was hoping for just crazy. You know? I was hoping for, you know, what could you do? And we did get like one, like later on, like after, but it's almost like we had to solve the world's problems and then we could get to, all right, the world is made of candy and let's have free cheese. And then last but definitely not least, what would you change about the world? More cheese. What kind of cheese? Hard cheese, soft cheese?
Cheddar cheese.
Just more cheese. But what would you do with the extra cheese?
Eat it.
All of it. Do you think there's not enough cheese in the world? Huh. You know, I know that I had free cheese, but it's only because I said, you know, that you can't repeat anything. But I was just like, do we pause and think to ourselves, you know, what it says about our society, that children, I'm talking about like, you know, 6 years old, like 8, 9 years old, and all these, their number, when you say, what would you change about the world, they say, oh man, I think I would give people a place to live, because too many people sleep on the streets, and I would give people when they're hungry, and I would give people, and I'm like, wow, you are not spared, you know, you're not living in like a child's world, does that make sense?
Yeah, and it was also, I don't know, don't know how this will sound out loud, but like a firm belief I've always had is that there are such things as grown up, it's just that like kids get more responsibility and like have a harsher life. And I think that only a kid would be like, why are we even doing this thing?
Yeah.
And sometimes we look at that as, and just like with the jobs thing, and the money thing, you can be like, oh, they just don't get it. But every once in a while, it's a very good question. And it's a question that like sometimes finally ends up in like the halls of Congress. Guys, why are we even doing this thing? And so it's like people put so much innocence on being a child, but I think there's a real amount of perspective you get from not being glued down yet. Yeah, definitely. You're almost like, I mean, I told you, I told you, like, even into my late teens, I think that was when I had my most, like, maybe even my most astute perspective, even without having been well-read or anything yet. I was just like, oh, but this doesn't, like, make sense. You now have this thing of, like, I'm gonna stay, imagining, and I'm also going to stay a little bit freer. I think that's kind of what I saw in some of those kids with their answers being like very worldly and astute, that I'm like, oh, if you could stay, in a way, if you could stay the way that you are now, then I know we always put it on the next generation, but it's like, that's actually the sort of like mindset and actions that change the world. Yeah. Because eventually you get so like bogged down and like stuck in the mud in a way, that now somebody brings up, okay, let's open up this housing in LA, and you're like, just got this house.
Don't you sound like me? I'm doing like a neighborhood watch.
Christiana, oh no.
Oh, what's that?
Oh no. Brought to you by Starbucks. Christiana, you probably drink more coffee than anybody I know. You love coffee.
I couldn't live without it, honestly. As a mother.
It's funny, I like coffee for the communal side. It's like the standing around, picking up ideas, chatting together.
I tell you, yeah.
What are some of the ideas for the show? Like, I mean, look, on this show, the idea of having kids on, should have terrified us, by the way, because you know better than anyone, like 6 kids sitting together on a couch is a terrible idea, but it was actually great. Like a fun idea, chatting to kids, learning about their points of view. And I don't know, I think ideas like that, you can only come up with when you're sort of in like a flow state, you know what I mean?
Coffee puts me in the flow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I start my day with cold brew. I love cold brew. Black and strong, just like me.
What you say?
Black and strong, just like me.
I absolutely love that.
You know, that's how I met my husband.
No way.
Yes, I'm not joking. He DM'd me on Twitter and was like, oh, I see you're in LA too. We should meet for coffee. And I'm like, what's this weird guy wanting to ask me out for coffee? But I'll do it because it was coffee and he seemed interested. And here we are.
He brought you in with
now I have children. I'm not even joking.
Well, that's the end of our coffee break. But hopefully you're inspired and want to connect and come up with some creative ideas for a marriage. It's a great day for coffee. It's a great day for Starbucks.
Nicholas Henry, nice one. Nice one. I actually charged him half of that for this piece.
I was there and it wasn't like that. I was there, yeah. I have always known.
Everybody, is this true? Is this true?
It is true.
Yeah.
I was there in the 1700s. Oh, I was there.
I don't know if this is as much of an African thing as it is a Southern thing, so I just wanted to.
Which by the way is the same thing.
It is very much the same thing. It's so
Sorry
funny.
to cut you off. No, that's one of my favorite things.
So the client's name is Quentin Ironside.
I feel like we have the exact same childhood. I feel like, and I mean, we don't want to go to the dark reason why. So we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
But like you, when you talk about your mom, I'm like, that's my mom. When you talk about your parents, I'm like, that's my parents. Like, yeah, but parents.
Well, basically, there's a thing that a lot of Southern people have that I wonder, who the person is for y'all. Because I've been told by a lot of people, I have a grandfather I never met, right? He passed away before I was born. And so it's not as if I could have been nurtured by him or grown up around him. But so many people in my life have told me I remind them of him. And it's almost like his spirit a little bit.
They completely have that.
And I'm wondering who you get told is like your spirit person.
So, my parents are hyper-Christian.
Okay.
So they moved away from the reading, which is a big thing in, like, Igbo culture, and Yoruba culture. There's, like, names that signify, like, the name, one of my close friends, her name is Yuande, which means the mother has returned. It is normally a name for somebody when they die, a grandmother died, and then the child that was born is a girl. There's names, I think Iyabo is the other name, and stuff like that. So I do, like, the lore of the culture is that people believe in reincarnation. So my parents never said that about me. However, Obi is so much like my father. There's things he does that scares me. Like the other day, he was walking through the supermarket and he had his hand behind his back. Through the old man wall. And I was like, oh my, it scared the shit out of me. And I could take a picture. I was like, what? And then there's a way he sits sometimes, the way he pushes his hand. And like, talking around my dad, and people say something all the time, but like, the actual mannerisms, and I was like, oh, I guess that's my father.
Especially if there's something you couldn't have taught him.
Couldn't have, like, there's enough, but he was just like walking around, and he was looking around like, in the way that my dad does, and he was like, I took a picture, and my dad was like, he said something in Igbo, bloody, or Barak,
Yeah, we're just talking about like the power of love in that way. So I have to say, my son, very much, I look at him and I see my father, but myself, I don't know.
No, I had that. So I was always told, like, people would say that to me about my grandfather. They would say, like, they literally say, you gotta do the same thing, you know, and like walk in a room. And this terrified me because we found out my grandfather was bipolar at the end of his life. So now I was like, I don't understand how many like psychologists are saying, I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. Are you sure? Like, I was like, all right, we'll keep checking. But yeah, I had that where people would say it's the same. They go like, you just seem like a flash from the past. They go, you know, you like the walk, and I didn't spend a lot of time with it, but they go, the walk is like his, and you know, the
It is Sanyu Lama. How are you doing?
chaos in the conversation, and all. They're like, it's like we're watching it happen again.
Sorry for the one that's writing in Arabic. I don't understand or can't read Arabic.
No, completely different. You know, it was like completely different people, vibes, everything. It's just, you know, I have a lot of personality with my dad on all this stuff. And ironically, again, I spent very little time with him. And these are like personality things that adults would have with each other. It's not like a child would pick up from a parent. Yeah. Mom was just like, oh man, that's your dad, you know? So it is fascinating to see that and to see like a, you know, a passed down / a, you know? Yeah. Which I like, I don't know. So before we go, there's two important things that I really need your help figuring out. What do you think adults struggle with understanding about kids? Like, what do you wish they understood? Okay, yes, Judith?
Okay, so I think that like adults sometimes don't understand like kids' feelings in like the way that like popularity at school and like when like something happened, like my mom was just like free and I was like no. And like in other things too, like I found like I didn't get into something that I really like worked for. And then they were like, go read a book and I was like, it's kind of like more than that.
Oh.
But like parents are also can be very understanding, but other times, like even as early like the next morning, you can like go to sleep and then the next morning it feels like they don't understand you at all.
Okay, so if I'm hearing what you're saying,
Oh, back.
you would love to live in a world where parents spend a little more time trying to understand what their kids are going through. Because maybe for them they make it seem like a small thing and they sort of get over it quickly, but then kids might still be dealing with it. Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite thing about hanging out with these kids was it made me realize that kids are a lot more perceptive than we think, and if we use that as a resource, genuinely, I don't even mean this in like a man world, you could like build a better world. Like even as a parent, kids can tell you things about yourself that you need to work on. It's amazing how they will, in the same way, funny enough, animal trainers, like dog trainers will tell you there's no such thing as a bad dog, there's only a bad owner. Mm-hmm. I think kids tell you who you are, whether you like it or not. Mm-hmm. They'll just tell you. I wonder how many parents ask their kids, hey, what do you think I could work on? What do you think I could spend a little more time? Where do you see my favorites? Mm-hmm. Like, what do you know, because you're a parent, right? Your job is to raise this child. And yet, you never ask the child who you are raising how they think you're doing. Mm-hmm. Which to me sounds like a crazy...
We should bring end of year reviews.
We should.
Like end of year, just be like to your kids. So, what did I do well this year?
Yeah. What do you think I do well?
Yeah. And what did you like about me? It's hard. Mm-hmm. One of them what my sister said. But,
and I think they would surprise you. Yeah. I think you'd be surprised at how lenient children are in a way that parents aren't. Yeah. I think parents take for granted that kids see in them things that they don't even.
Child wants what's best for you in such earnest. It's like, that's very, it's like earth shattering, like shaking to your soul. Just even kids that aren't my kids, but my friends' kids will be like, how have you been? And like, I miss you so much. And like, the way a child says they miss you is like, what?
Yeah.
You were thinking about it.
Yeah.
You don't even know what week it is.
Yeah.
Guys, sorry, my phone went off. My phone went off. Sorry, guys. Sorry. But yeah, we are done now with the statue. Officially done. Took 2 sessions. And let me just see something here. Yeah. Anwar Bacha, how you doing? Q boy, hope you're good. So I think I'm just gonna put some more shading in here now. Then we can wrap it up. Quite in flare ook content. Wat het sê?
Ja.
Een vlerke gewoon het.
O, hierdie my boer.
Ja, sien jy. Nou jy sien hom ook.
Wanneer ek hom daar het eers gesien. Hier dan op punt. Ek kry hier in 'n foto na jou gestuur.
Okay, dankie.
Die mense die nog uit goed uitgegooi het. Nou dit gaan ons het weer.
Skit, we're gonna add some Viking characters in here. Because it's like a Viking back piece. Gaan hulle koontie, gaan hulle.
Ja, hy is ook keerlik hier oorvloed. Maar hy kan ander strate ry om af te jaag. Dit is kyk nie eers die uitry om met hom te.
Wat is je volgende uitkomst? Wat is er ook wat?
Die net geweest. Bestuur mijn boodschap is er een keer later.
Wauw. De mensen laten weten, joh.
Ja.
Ah, dat is het belangrijkste. So guys, this is it. Thank you guys for joining my live. Thank you for subscribing. If you guys haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. I'll be doing a second back piece for the day. Around about an hour or two maybe. So join in again after 2 hours as I will be doing a back piece of a bull. This is the crow I did today. Also took 2 sessions. Took 2 sessions to do this. Hope you guys enjoyed the session. Please hit the subscribe button. See you guys in my next live. Cheers.